The Pharisees demanded proof, and Christ offered only one. And it's interesting, the evidence was not even in the resurrection itself, but the length of time that he would rest in the grave. Think about what that means. Jesus staked his claim to being our Savior upon remaining 3 days and 3 nights in the tomb. If that happened, he would prove himself the Savior. But if he failed in just this one sign, he must be rejected as an impostor. You know, you can try it in every which way, but you cannot, by any process of arithmetic, figure any less than 72 full hours in a resurrection from the dead, which occurred 3 days and 3 nights after the crucifixion. Now, there's many examples. Let me list a few. Mark 8, verse 31, and chapter 9, verse 31, Matthew 27, verse 63, and even John chapter 2, verses 19 through 21. If we are to accept all the testimony of the Bible, we must conclude, there's no wiggle room, that Jesus was 72 hours in the grave, or the only sign, and the sign means supernatural proof, the only sign he gave must fail. To be 3 days and 3 nights in the tomb, Christ had to arise from the tomb exactly the same time of day that his body was buried and the tomb was closed. Well, that's interesting, because if we can find the time of day that he was buried, then by simple deduction or just a little bit of arithmetic, we can find the time of the day that he rose, with a gap of exactly 72 hours. Now, the biblical day, and this is very important to understand, with our modern calendar, we count days from midnight to midnight, but not so in the scriptures. In the Bible, a day begins and ends at sunset. You can reference Leviticus chapter 23, verse 32, and I hope you'll go back and look that up. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 32, from sunset to sunset. Now, the day is broken up into 8 equal parts. The first hour was from sunrise to 9 a.m. The third hour was from 9 a.m. to noon. The sixth hour is noon to 3 p.m. The ninth hour is 3 p.m. to sunset. Then the first watch was from sunset to 9 p.m. The second watch was from 9 p.m. to midnight. The third watch was from midnight to 3 a.m. And the fourth watch was from 3 a.m. to sunrise. Now that's important for us to understand, especially now as we go to Matthew chapter 27. Let's read from there. Matthew chapter 27. And we're going to read a couple of verses. Matthew 27, we're going to read verses 45 and 46. Now from the sixth hour, again, remember that's from noon to 3 p.m. until the ninth hour, which is from 3 p.m. to sunset. Okay? Now from the sixth hour into the ninth hour, there was darkness over all the land. And about the ninth hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. That is, my God, why have you forsaken me? Of course, that was prophesied to be said. Well, again, what was the ninth hour of the day? It was from 3 p.m. to sunset. From 3 p.m. to sunset. So Jesus was laid in the tomb just before sunset. Now, that's an important point. Now, according to the laws observed, all dead bodies must be buried before the beginning of a new day. You get that from Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 23. And again, remember, days begin and end at sunset. So Jesus was buried just before sunset on the same day he died. And since he rose from the tomb at the same time of day, just 3 days later, Christ rose from the tomb, get this, not at sunrise, not at sunrise, but in the evening when the day ended, which would have been sunset. And if it happened any other way, he failed to prove the only sign that he gave of his messiahship, showing that he really was the Son of God. He staked his claim on that one and only sign. Therefore, the time-honored tradition of Good Friday, Easter Sunday must be shattered. The Passover lamb killed every year, beginning on the 14th of the first month of Abib, was a type of Christ. It pointed to Jesus Christ, which is why Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 5:7, Christ is our Passover, sacrificed for us, John 1:29. And there's many other verses. Those are just a couple. Jesus was slain on the very same time of day the Passover had been slain every year. And this day wasn't any old day, it was the Passover. And the Passover was the day before and the preparation for the next day, which was a feast day or annual high day Sabbath, which occurred on the 15th of Abib. Which high day Sabbath occurs on the 15th of Abib? See, that's why it's so important that we keep the holy days of God. When we get rid of the holy days of God, we lose all these biblical truths. The 15th of Abib, that high day Sabbath, was the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Now in Daniel chapter 9, let's turn there, Daniel chapter 9. Notice an interesting prophecy. Daniel chapter 9, I'm just going to read verse 27. I hope you go back and read this for yourself and go all the way from verse 24, 25, 26, 27. I'm just going to read, for the sake of time, this part here in verse 27. Then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week, but in the middle of the week he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering. He shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering. And notice, in the middle of the week. Now, count the 3 days and the 3 nights. Well, what's the middle of the week? It's Wednesday. So his body was Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday nights in the grave. That's 3 nights. It was also there through the daylight portion of Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. That's 3 days. Historically, the Hebrew calendar shows that our Savior died on Wednesday, April 25th, 31 AD. He rose from the grave Saturday evening at the same time of day that Joseph of Arimathea had buried him and closed the tomb. Well, no wonder, when Mary Magdalene and her companions come along, they find an empty tomb on the first day of the week because he was already gone. The only sign Jesus gave was the sign of Jonah. 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth, or tomb, or grave, giving us an absolute assurance and proof of our great high priest that he is sitting alive and well at the right hand of God. If you desire truth, I'd like to bring to your attention a wonderful little booklet. It's entitled The Plain Truth About Easter. It was written by Herbert W. Armstrong. The Plain Truth About Easter, written by Herbert W. Armstrong. You can find this booklet on our website, along with other Bible study materials, all free of charge, of course. If you have any questions, I invite you to visit us on Facebook or YouTube. The links are below. Hey, thanks for watching. If you'd like more videos breaking down God's truth for today, hit subscribe. We'd love to have you. The Bible is the most up-to-date book ever written. It's a new book. It's a now book for today and tomorrow. It's a book of truth, always the same. It never gets old. This is Michael Ellertson with the Holy Kiss. Until next time, goodbye, friends.